Hey, how you doing, everyone? Andy Hall. This is the Disappointed Cat Morning Show, where godlessness and progressive politics lives. We've got a crazy show, as always, going on today. What are the stories? An oxygen shortage, of crisis, critical levels in many countries. Southern Baptists, not doing too well, Southern Baptist, single tier. Cops, effing cops. I cannot even talk about this right now because that's sometime later in the show, and radioactive vodka from the Ukraine, from Chernobyl. That's a story. That is a story. If we get around to it, we're going to talk about James Carville and a few other stories. I don't know. We're going to just try to blast through as much as we can today, everyone. You want to do something funny? We got to do something funny before we get into legitimate news.
Do you remember that guy from college who was like yellow and square?
What?
He was kind of like a silly guy, had like holes in his body.
Are you talking about SpongeBob?
Yes, SpongeBob. That was his name.
No, we didn't go to school with SpongeBob.
No, come on. He was friends with Julie. He hung out with like Kristen, Abby, Squidward, that whole crew. At one point, I feel like he had beef with Plankton.
Yeah, man, that was in a TV show.
Did they make Legos of him? He was on our floor freshman year.
He's a cartoon character.
Dude, who the fuck used to take us jellyfishing?
Guess he's not on Facebook.
We might have seen him last year at Mrs. Puff's birthday drink.
Absorbent yellow and porous was he?
That's the theme
What are
song!
you talking about?
We get like so high.
I never went
That was a
jellyfishing!
huge part of our college experience. I guess I'm just losing my mind then.
I guess you
Yeah,
are, Martin.
I guess I am.
guess you are.
Going nuts.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed that I'm a SpongeBob SquarePants fan. I mean, have you seen the show? Have you seen the movie? Wasn't Ryan Reynolds in that movie? I don't know. I hope everyone's doing well today. Buzz, Brainbug. Hope you're doing well, Brainbug. I'm doing okay so far. So far, so good, right? So far, so good. And Simply Secular Dave. Hope you're doing well. Working the late night shift, Dave. That's what you were doing yesterday? I don't know. Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm going to cough, and I'm going to try to not cough in your ears. These allergies are killing me. Raleigh, North Carolina. That's where my birth mom's where my birth mom is right now, actually. And that's where my sister lives. Well, outside of Raleigh, more towards Fort Bragg. Mighty Mouse, good afternoon from Denmark. My favorite mark, Denmark. Let's see, Jess M. Glenn Chesterson. I hope you're doing well, Glenn. And Vesta from Calgary, Alberta. You know, I want to be honest with you all. Since I've started reconnecting, or since my birth family started reconnecting with me, I've been a little bit more restrained on Facebook. And then I came to a conclusion that I bet many people are on Twitter just because a lot of their family's on Facebook, and people can be maybe a little bit more honest or a little bit more edgy on Twitter than on Facebook, right? Because let's face it, Facebook is used by a lot of people to connect with family and to network. It isn't LinkedIn or anything like that. It isn't strictly professional, but a lot of people on Facebook, they're hanging out with their family members. And it's like, do I want and the thing is, I just started connecting with my birth family a few months ago, right? Do I really want to give them both barrels of Andy and the humor? Because, you know, everything is grist for the mill. Everything is potentially a joke. And that's difficult to ease into. That's a difficult thing to ease other people into. Oh, you have a Twitter account that you never use. I use mine. And I think I'm going to be using it more. I'm at Laugh Purgatory for all of you who do use Twitter. And I think I'm going to be able to make more jokes, maybe about my family interactions or about my experiences. How's that? My experiences on Twitter than on Facebook. That's my current strategy. My family can't tell me where to book my face. Nice. I like that. I like that. And Brainbug, that's the appeal of Twitter to me, right? Because I tweeted that out because it was like an epiphany, because I had this really funny joke that I wanted to, well, it wasn't really funny, but I had this insight, maybe a little mean, maybe a little funny. And it's like, I can't post this on Facebook. People are going to see it, like relatives I haven't even met are going to see this. So maybe that's, I might be doing more of my edgelord material on Twitter as against to Facebook. I hope you took a look at today's morning. A little bit I wrote on my blog, Laughing in Disbelief. It's a farce. It's satirical. It's about Marjorie Taylor Greene physically attacking a Jewish deli where she just kicks the outside of it. I think it was kind of funny, somewhat popular. If you want to take a look at it, it's there up in the chat. The Hoff was in the movie. The Hoff. You're talking about Michael Knight, right? That's right. John Hudson, how you doing? All right. Oh, that's me. That's right. This is me on Twitter. Thank you, Dave. All right. Jess M. My sister-in-law blocked me on Facebook after I told her essential oils aren't medicine. They aren't medicine. They're not essential. They're not essential, and they're not medicine. They are in the same. They're not in the same category as some Hindus who are using cow feces and urine to protect themselves from COVID. They're not in the same category as that, but they are not medicine. They are not medicine. All right, let's do that. You want to do a couple of memes? Let's do a couple of memes, everyone, before talking about the world. And let's see, what do we have funny going on? Throwback. Is this a throwback joke? This is I don't know why I'm looking at the microphone while I'm saying this. I'm looking at the microphone as if I'm talking to you all. This is a throwback joke, by the way, everyone. System restore disk. Do not erase. I think there might be some young people who don't get the joke. But, it's a magnet. Next meme. My psych professor asked if we'd heard of Pavlov. I said, it rings a bell. No one laughed. I'm too witty for this class. Oh, Steve Foley. I understand. I understand. And then you feel like you need to explain the joke. And there's no way that you can explain a joke like this to your class without looking like a dick. Yeah. And this is a little lighthearted. This might blow a few of your gaskets. This is a spin off of a popular meme. Star Wars. No, Stargate, I'm sorry. Battlestar Galactica, Gandalf, with Picard as a picture, and Spider-Man as a figurine. And of course, DC as the ultimate insult to Spider-Man. I thought that was great, to tell you the truth. How much wrong can you put into one image? How much wrong can you put into one image? And that's it right there. Did you hear? I just found out this story, by the way, everyone. I was just checking my feed, and it seems that Mike Lindell was tossed out of a Republican governor's convention. So sad. He wasn't allowed to attend any of the official activities. It was the governor's convention, and it seems like maybe a group of Republicans are sick and tired of Mike Lindell's crap. Might cover the story tomorrow. I don't know. But that's a little beam of sunlight, a little bit of hope right there. Oh, Glenn Chesterton says, I have most of my family on Facebook. I sometimes think I should regulate what I post. Then I say, fuck it. If you don't get or like my humor or worldviews, unfollow me. Yeah, I think that's fair. I've unfollowed people because they just, I just cannot handle the word salad that comes out of your mouth. I still go around with my wife about chiropractics being woo-woo. Yeah, brain bug. I hear what you're saying about chiropractic. Isn't the entire system based on uneven legs? Is that the basic premise of chiropractic? Jessi Bear, how you doing? Simply Secular Dave. I told a woman from my church who was selling essential oils in the lobby before church that she was a charlatan exploiting the vulnerable, and she blocked me on FB. You're just trying to help out, Dave. You're just trying to spread the wisdom of rationalism here. Now, Vesta, you're singing my song right here. Maybe we should have a Mike Lindell tossing contest. Maybe we can engineer catapults, too, to launch Mr. Lindell. That'd be fun. Isn't there a watermelon catapult contest somewhere? Like you can, there's some kind of competition somewhere in Midwest America that you can, you just develop slingshots or catapults for watermelons. I think that'd be fine. Oh yeah, I've got a few friends that go to a chiropractor for wellness. Yeah, quote unquote wellness. I hear what you're saying. Man, how can they have a governor's event without a pillow salesman? Indeed, maybe they just add that. Maybe they just said to themselves, "We have enough pillows, and Christ knows we have enough QAnon conspiracies here." A Micah Pult. That's right. We should have a Micah Pult competition for Mike Lindell. All right. Let's talk about oxygen shortages. Threaten total collapse of dozens of health systems. Of course, this is affecting countries that don't have many resources to begin with. Data reveals Nepal, Iran, and South Africa among 19 countries most at risk of running out as surging COVID cases push supplies of limit. Once again, I can't cover. Some of these stories are really long, and I can only give short synopses of them. The complete description, the complete articles, the links to them are down in the description, everyone, but you know that. Most of you are regulars, right? Dozens of countries are facing severe oxygen shortages because of surging COVID-19 cases, threatening the total collapse of health services. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism analyzed data provided by Every Breath Counts Coalition, the NGO Path, and the Clinton Health Access Initiative to find the countries most at risk of running out of oxygen. It also studied data on global vaccination rates. 19 countries around the world, including India, Argentina, Iran, Nepal, the Philippines, Malaysia, Pakistan, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and South Africa, are deemed most at risk after recording huge increases in demand since March, at least a 20% rise, while having vaccinated less than 20% of their populations. Internet friend of mine, Suzanne Tickmeyer, lives in Costa Rica. I should see if she's okay if there's such an oxygen shortage going on down there. Many of these countries face oxygen shortages before the pandemic, said Leith Greenslade, the coordinator of the Every Breath Counts Coalition. The extra need is pushing health systems to the brink. The situation last year and again in January this year in Brazil and Peru should have been a wake-up call, she said, but the world did not wake up. We should have known India would happen after seeing what happened in Latin America, and now looking at Asia, we should know this will happen in some of the big cities in Africa. If there is one thing that we've learned during COVID-19, as if we needed to know this as rationalists, skeptics, that people, that large organizations at least, bureaucracies, they just have difficulty adapting to new situations. You get to appreciate the fact that many of our basic institutions are not running on smarts, but they're running on inertia. And when situations change, they do not pivot quickly. And of course, we've talked on this channel many times about ways that you can actually help make organizations pivot more quickly. But many, unfortunately, have not. I'm just going to go to the last shot here. Let's see. A senior official at the World Bank said countries had applied for loans for ventilators and PPE, but not for oxygen supplies. Once again, they had a chance for funding for oxygen supplies, but did not apply for them. The variants and the sudden spikes that we've seen now have caught people by surprise to a large extent, and the weakest point in the system has turned out to be the oxygen supply system. Looking ahead, Greenslade would like to see governments create comprehensive national medical oxygen strategies with workers trained to give patients oxygen directly and maintain and fix equipment. Yeah. So what are ways that you can actually, that organizations, whether they're small organizations or whether they're large organizations, or even on a personal level, there are ways of making sure, or at least safeguarding yourself from stupid. And one of them, at least in my own personal life, this is what I do, is that I like to have people who are honest with me, who are smart, who have shown to have good judgment, or who are specialists within whatever, within their field, for them to say words to me that I will understand, and I'll be able to make decisions based on some of that information. You got to have contrarian voices in government and in large, corporations, and they need to be able to speak truth to decision makers, because that there were people in these governments that said things like, it's great that we're getting these PPE supplies, but what about the oxygen? Don't you think we might need oxygen? Not listened to, my friends, not listened to. So having contrarian voices within and institutionally placed within organizations is important to have. I see what you did there, John Hudson. Study shows 70% of oxygen reduction in the U.S. is due to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well played, sir. Well played. Well, Glenn Chesterton, yes. Glenn points out that, isn't it like buying a car and deciding you don't need an engine? Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so let's take a look at James Carville. And this is an interesting, I don't agree with James Carville, who was a strategist for Bill Clinton's win. He's a strategist, but the name of this video is, does the Republican Party deserve Marjorie Taylor Greene? That's the name of the video. Let's take a look at it.
Are the Democrats right now being tough enough? Are they taking what they have out for a spin, knowing, as you do, the numbers for them may not get this good again for a good long time?
Well, I think the Democrats do need to be tough. We need to be aggressive. I have a piece coming out in a major publication tomorrow that's going to urge the Democratic Party to tackle this crime issue front and center. Trump is the worst president in modern American history on the issue of crime. And Democrats do need to be more aggressive. I really believe that. And to what Governor Steele said, I thought what he said was brilliant. And the only question that I kind of wondered, does the modern Republican Party deserve Marjorie Taylor Greene? Is she a logical outgrowth of the kinds of things that Governor Steele was talking about? And I don't know how much that she is out, how far out of the current, and I can't use the word Republican mainstream in the same sentence together, but to the extent that there is, I don't know how far away she is from the norm. You can name 5 other people out of these 2 guys from Arizona, but Louis Gohmert or Matt. There's more than one. There's a whole nest of them, and that's just where they are. But yeah, the Democrats have an opportunity here, and they have to do what effective people do. They take a chance. They seize on this opportunity at the moment they have it. So we'll see where it goes. But I'll have a lot more to say about this in the weeks ahead.
I'll say one thing about the Democrats not being aggressive enough, and that would be on DC statehood, Puerto Rican statehood. How much have we heard about this story over the last couple of weeks? Not a whole lot. And whenever you hear about it, the Democrats are like shrugging their shoulders and saying, we don't have enough votes. Thank you, Joe Manchin III. Did you know that Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, he's actually the third? It frightens me that there were 2 other Joe Manchins before this, but I digress. there is this kind of resignation amongst Democrats in the Senate about DC statehood and Puerto Rican statehood. Outside of COVID relief, DC statehood and Puerto Rican statehood are the most important things the Democrats could attain. And whatever political capital, whatever they need to bribe Senator Joe Manchin III, they should bribe him so that they can pass it, so they can pass DC statehood on a straight 50-50 vote. The Hive needs statehood too. Indeed, indeed. All right. So Carville is a nut. Oh yeah, I remember hearing a story back in when Clinton was running, is that he didn't change underwear through the entire campaign. I mean, he would wash his underwear every night, but I remember hearing the story that James Carville did not change underwear through the entire campaign. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Republicans, and at least the new Republican Party, or the pragmatically speaking, the Republican party, the Republicans totally deserve her. She is their base. They've been nurturing insanity for 40 years. Well, okay, the Republicans have been nurturing insanity in their party since the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 1967. Ever since then, when the Republicans embraced white supremacy in the South. This is the logical conclusion. This is the logical conclusion of them nurturing and supporting evangelicals and white supremacists. I'm sorry, are they the same thing? Maybe, possibly, yes. So yeah, this is Marjorie Taylor Greene is the logical conclusion of the Republican Party embracing white supremacy, supporting, evangelicals, and tax cuts. It could, Glenn Chesterton. It could if they decide to fuck with the filibuster. And remember, everyone, in terms of the filibuster, it is just a rule in the Senate. It's not in the Constitution. The Senate can change that, and they have changed it in the past with a stroke of a pen if they get enough votes. And once again, if nothing else, it's about bribery and finding out what people want. All right. Next, what are we doing? It's too early for the, Simply Secular Dave. DC and Puerto Rican statehood would drastically change the political landscape, and that's a huge fight to win. It is. I would say it's the wedge thing for not just for this election cycle, but for generations to come. The Dems could end up in this fight exclusively and get nothing else accomplished, and still, Well, that's what she is, B. And B, good to see you. She's imitating Trump so she can get his base to support her. Indeed. And she is from a very conservative part of Georgia. Comedian, liberal, Corey Ryan Forrester has been on this channel before. And he talked about, and he lives in Chattanooga, where there was a famous Civil War battle fought in Chattanooga, Georgia, when Sherman came down to basically burn the state. That's a pain. That's a shame. And I think it was in 1864, but I digress. So, but he says his that whole area is just very conservative. What's up, David Paul? Glad to see that you're here. Glad to see that you're here. All right, next story. Let's do next story here. Good story. This is very positive, everyone, right? Follows a trend. In 2020, Southern Baptists experienced a record decline in membership. This is from Hemant Mehta. Link is in the description. Let's check out what Hemant has to say. The Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the country, lost another 435,632 members over the past year, according to the annual church profile compiled by Lifeway Christian Resources. Comes a year after the denomination suffered its previous record decline in membership, which means things only got worse for them. I wonder if Lifeway Christian Resources keeps track of the Satanic Temples numbers. It's a church. Satanic Temple's a church. I wonder if they keep track of the Church of Satan's numbers too. Probably not. They're just concerned about how their wretched Christianity is decreasing over time. All right, let's take a look here. Here are the numbers you want to hear. In 2019, there were 14,525,579 Southern Baptists. And we all know that's 14,525,579 Southern Baptists too many. In 2020, the number dropped to 14 million, a little bit over 14 million, a drop of well over 400,000 people. And just as a point of reference, in 2003, the Southern Baptist Convention had over 16 million members. Hemmant writes it gets better. Compared to the previous year, there were 112,588 fewer baptisms, over 810,000 fewer group attending weekly worship, and 357,000 fewer people attending Sunday school Bible study small group. Yes, so that is just another panel that I just made a mistake with. Scott McDonald, executive director of Lifeway Research, said the number of factors likely contributed to the 3% decline in overall membership, including fewer congregations, fewer additions through baptism, and other additions, likely higher deaths from COVID-19, and other reductions in the membership of individual Southern Baptist congregations. Numerous church leaders have described their attempts to stay in touch with their congregation throughout the pandemic, McConnell said. As congregations rediscovered the telephone, they also discovered some on their membership list who moved away, joined another church, or no longer wanted to be a member. This is the reason why churches are so desperate during COVID-19. What we have seen is that COVID-19 is an accelerant, right? We've seen that online businesses just got bigger, of course. Small brick and mortar businesses got weaker, went out of business. And we're seeing this with Christianity in churches too. They were already in decline, and COVID-19 just accelerated that. And the leaders know this. The leaders know that, and that's why they are so desperate. They are so desperate. And the thing is, this is, by the way, the part of the, and I'm going to talk to the microphone again for some reason. I don't know why I'm talking to my microphone. And this is microphone. This is why they're so dangerous. Dangerous people do, desperate people do dangerous things, right? We know that, microphone. Desperate people do dangerous things. If you, how much of the population does it require to cause a revolution or to obtain power, right? We saw what happened in Donald Trump's presidency. You don't need a majority of people to overthrow a government or to create an insurgency. So even though the number of Southern Baptists have decreasing over time, they are still plenty enough to throw a coup. There's still enough to obtain power through non-democratic means. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing throughout the country with all these voter restrictions. It is their attempt to hold to relevancy. And the only way they can do that is from non-democratic means. So, aren't Baptists like Calvinists having a taste for taking the Bible literally? The Southern Baptists in particular. But there are many different flavors of Baptists too. But there is the inerrancy among Southern Baptists or many Southern Baptists for the Bible. Yeah, declining Baptists, definitely double plus good. Did I say double plus good? Yeah, I'll stick with that. Double plus good. Let's see who else we have here. Could the church write off that as depreciation if they pay taxes, John Hudson? We're never going to pay taxes. Secularist Dave says, I heard that if you eat pages of the Bible, it prevents COVID infection. Well, it doesn't, but the thought of a bunch of evangelical Christians eating old musty books, right? Yeah. Well, that makes as much sense as like we had mentioned before about some Hindus washing themselves with cow urine and feces. Now, this is interesting. Church-going people in Sweden are only 4% of the population. That is fantastic, Phil Lister. And that's the world I long for. That's the country I long for, is that we become more like Scandinavia in terms of religiosity. And the way to become like Scandinavia regarding religiosity is, of course, having progressive principles, voting in progressive principles, progressive politicians, making sure we have a good social safety net, making sure that healthcare is affordable or free. No, we need to make we need to make healthcare free. That's what we need to do, and to tax people appropriately. Halftime show. Halftime show? Let's do halftime show.
There's a version of me out there in another person's head, full of half-truths and a few things I wish I had never said. He tells her that she's worthless, he treats her like she's crap, and it really doesn't matter that I never would say that. Never date a writer, never be a muse. Everything is copy, every drama gets reused. They'll control the narrative, you'll feel misunderstood. Never date a writer, especially if they're good. Everybody wants to own the goodbye. Everybody wants to be right. So if you don't look like the good guy, put the story down in black and white, and you write till you're right.
Was that not genius? That was a little slice of truth right there, everyone. Never date a writer. You shouldn't be dating a comedian either. My girlfriend, the girlfriend is on a meeting right now. I've told her this before. It's like, you really shouldn't be dating me. I'm just nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. Vesta says, I own a small business and employ 31 people, 93 consultants at the start of COVID, and only had to lay off my receptionist. And did that last September. I hope by this September, things get back to normal. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. All right, what's the next story? Cops. Effing cops. I really would rather talk about radioactive vodka and Baptists, about how Baptists are going extinct here in this country. But it seems that bad cops and horrible policing just aren't going away anytime soon. So we have to cover some of the stories. And this is just some of the stories, too. As you well know, fans, friends, and countrymen, and country people, that we could take the entire show dedicated to bad cops. We don't do that, because that is the path to madness. But we do have to cover some of the stories, and some of the most egregious stories, too. Here it is. Baton Rouge cops strip searched a minor during a traffic stop. They strip searched a minor in the street. We're going to get to that. And entered a family's home without a warrant. The city just settled for $35,000. Not a lot of money. The case is an indictment on how hard it is to get accountability when the government violates your rights. This is true. It's more like when the police union violates your rights. Let's face it. It's the police. The government is addicted to police and the unions. But the story, no matter how bad the story seems to be from this title, it's actually a lot worse. They undersell this story, to tell you the truth. Let's take a look. At Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a family has settled with the city for $35,000 after officers conducted a pretextual traffic stop, strip searched a minor in public, and conducted a warrantless home entry that resulted in a man spending 5 months behind bars. The officers' actions were so egregious, they attracted the ire of a federal judge. A civil suit filed by the family of Clarence Green was formally dismissed last week after the Baton Rouge Metropolitan Council agreed to the payout in favor of a jury trial. Such a result is highly unusual and is perhaps a commentary on how much of a legal loser the city knew this case would be. It also is a reminder of how difficult it is to get meaningful accountability when the government violates our rights. Well, I'd say the police department. Like F the police department. After all, the modest sum awarded to Green's family will ultimately be paid by the taxpayers. The criminal charges against Green were only dropped after he spent 5 months behind bars. And the cop at the center of the scandal already had multiple complaints against him prior that day. So this poor guy spent 5 months behind bars. And his family settled for $35,000 from the city. Is that tax-free money? I don't know if it is or not. I don't think it's going to be tax-free from the federal government. But let's talk about the strip search. Let's get to this. Baton Rouge Police Department Sergeant Ken Kamalo, who's the villain to the story, everyone, who had been checking vacant residencies while searching for someone suspected of theft, abandoned that mission after seeing a car with out-of-state plates in front of a, quote, known drug house. Bum, bum, bum. War on drugs. According to the BRPD incident reports obtained by Reason, Kamalo stopped the car for suspicious driving. Behind the wheel was a woman named Kayleen Butler. Kamalo ordered her and her passengers, 23-year-old Clarence Green and his 16-year-old brother, whose name is withheld in court documents because he is a minor, another unnamed passenger, and a young female child to exit the vehicle. According to the police report, Kamalo said he smelled marijuana, so the officers placed Clarence and his brother in handcuffs. The officers, here it comes, the officers then pulled down their underwear while they stood on a public street, exposing their genitals and searched for drugs. On a public street, in public, they pulled down the pants, revealed their genitals, and looked for drugs to a minor. Someone ends up 5 months in jail, and the city only has to pay $35,000. According to the initial incident report, the officers found a firearm in Green's underwear because he was then on probation for possession of oxycodone. Yay, drug war again. Green was prohibited from possessing a gun. The report also stated that cops found marijuana on Green's younger brother. Do we believe the cops? Microphone. Do we believe the cops when they said they found a gun and marijuana? Do we believe them? I don't believe them. These are the same people who are strip searching a kid in public. The officers then paid a visit to Green's home. Sergeant transported. All right. Quick break. My allergies are kicking my ass today. So I'm going to have to take a cough break. Not a coffee break, a cough. Man. Allergies, everyone. Let's go. The officers then paid a visit to Green's home. Sergeant transported Green and his co-defendant juvenile brother to their residence in an attempt to release the juvenile to his mother, according to the report. The cops entered the residence with guns brandished and without a warrant. So they strip searched this kid, probably planted a gun and drugs on him. Then they just had guns drawn to enter the home without a warrant. It wasn't until they finished the search that they allowed his mother, Tanya Green, to see her children. At the time, the officers sought to convince Clarence's 16-year-old brother to consent to a DNA swab. Call a lawyer, said Clarence, his statement captured in the body camera footage while he sat handcuffed in the back of the police cruiser. If you don't, shut the fuck up, responded Officer Troy Lawrence Jr. I'm going to come in and I'm going to fuck you up. Do you think I'm playing with you? I will fuck you up. Once again, 5 months in jail, strip searched. The guy just calls for is telling his family to call a lawyer, and then the officer tells him he's going to fuck him up. Green was ultimately indicted for unlawful possession of a firearm. He would sit in jail for several months until the government abruptly sought to drop the charges with little explanation. The little explanation is that they knew they had no case. That's why, that they had screwed things up so much. That's why they dropped the case. The federal judge overseeing the case granted the state's request. Then, in an unorthodox move, he issued a scathing rebuke at the prosecution, noting that the cops involved may very well be guilty of criminal wrongdoing. I wonder if they were guilty of criminal wrongdoing. Let's see. Let's just continue this horrible story. In his opinion, Judge Jackson also noted that Sergeant Campbell had multiple conflicting accounts when describing the circumstances leading up to Green's traffic stop, and failed to offer a satisfactory explanation for why the police reports in his investigation were revised nearly 12 times after Green was arrested. It's clear why the police report had to be altered 12 times. 12 times? One dozen, 12. That's like one. That's 12. That's 12 times. The police report had to be changed 12 times. Why? Because he screwed up so much. And I didn't know how long. I never know how long. I'm going to talk to the microphone. I don't know how long to go into each story. Sometimes I skip over panels, but this is such an egregious story. It just burns me so much. I'm just going to go through the whole set of panels here, the whole set of slides. This is what the judge wrote. The state agents in this case demonstrated a serious and wanton disregard for the defendant's constitutional rights, first by initiating a traffic stop on the thinnest of pretexts, and then haphazardly invading defendant's home with weapons drawn to conduct an unjustified warrantless search, wrote Judge Brian A. Jackson of the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Louisiana. Such an intrusion, in abject violation of the protections afforded by the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which protects citizens against unwarranted governmental intrusions in their homes, may justifiably be considered to be a trespass subject to prosecution under Louisiana law. And that may not be the extent of the officer's misdeeds. Thomas Frampton, the lawyer for the Green family, argues that the officers also violated both the Constitution and the state law when they strip searched the brothers in the street. Yeah, think so. Maybe strip searching people in the street is illegal. The Supreme Court has said that the officers may conduct a frisk, meaning a brief pat down of the outer garments, if the officer has reasonable suspicion that the individual is armed. Frampton says the reason that's okay, according to the court, is it's because of a properly conducted pat down is ostensibly non-invasive. A strict search on a public sidewalk, however, is something else altogether. It's like arguing with a flat earther. The earth isn't flat, right? Or talking to a kid. These are just things that that everyone should know, right? That strip searching someone in public on a public street is wrong. Baton Rouge Police Department, fuck you. Fuck you sideways. Oh, thank you for love. Thank you. See the violence inherent in this system. That's right. You cannot have American-style capitalism. You cannot have the culture as it is without this kind of violence. It is inherent in the system. All right. It is gross, brain bug. It is. I don't even know. I saw the story. It's like yeah. John Hudson. It is Philister. It is staggering. I was reading this story next to my girlfriend. It's like, I am never fucking going to Louisiana. She goes, well, I have family in Louisiana. I wish you well. It is just it's just a place I'm not going to go to. She goes, well, what about New Orleans? It's like, I've been there once. There's many other places that I could go besides Louisiana. Oh yeah, B. I mean, right? B writes they should be arrested for sexual assault to a minor. Yeah. And the cop does. Yeah, they need to be in jail, but qualified immunity, once again, qualified immunity protects cops. It gives them a license to abuse citizens. Yeah, Jessi Bear. I mean, I consider strip search as a violation of rights to start and then in public to a minor. Hell no, exactly. All right. I'm going to share a video. I'm going to take some moments here to recenter myself. This is an appropriate video to show too. And you'll find out in a second or two while I wrestle with technology here. All right. We got full screen action. Yeah, we got full screen action. Here we go.
Well, it has been a day of reflection around the country on the one-year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. No one knew his name a year ago, but tonight his name is prompting change in Washington and around the country. NBC Bear's Cheryl Hurd takes a look at how people remembered George Floyd.
Since last spring, more than 30 states have enacted police reforms. 16 states, including California, have banned or limited use of neck holds or restraints. Many people I talked to tonight say that George Floyd is the reason for that change. In Livermore, people gathering at Stockman's Park.
Pretty much I'm here just to show solidarity for our boy George Floyd.
Solidarity and a chance to reflect on Floyd's killing 1 year ago today. People used the sidewalk to write his name, and they brought flowers.
And as I put it next to his beautiful picture, I thought to myself, George, we watched you die. We all saw it on TV, and it just broke my heart.
Not everyone who came felt that way. There were detractors.
We're in a peaceful place.
I'm in a peaceful place. I got every right to sit here with you.
But they were overshadowed by people who are looking ahead.
There's been absolutely too much violence in our day, and there's just too much racism, and it's blatant, and the data speaks for itself.
Today, Floyd's family met privately with President Biden and Vice President Harris at the White House.
We're just thankful for what's going on, and we just want this George Floyd Policing Act to be passed in the future.
Among the key people we've turned to over the past year, the uncle of Oscar Grant. Grant was shot and killed at a BART station in Oakland in 2009. Today, his uncle, Cephas Johnson, traveled to Minneapolis to remember George Floyd.
I'm cautiously optimistic that there's a change that is coming because there's been so many people inflicted with this egregious act of police violence in this country.
Cheryl Hurd, NBC Bay Area News.
All right. A somber anniversary, maybe. I don't know, everyone. I don't know. Covering the stories that we cover. It's difficult to keep hope alive, but there have been some steps forward. Hopefully those steps will continue after the midterm election. Hopefully. Something lighter, something we all want to know more about, and that's radioactive vodka from Chernobyl. Is this a real story? Yes, it is. Link is in the description. Radioactive, and not only is the vodka radioactive microphone, I'm talking to microphone right now, not only is the vodka radioactive, but it is embroiled in a court battle too at the same time. How is that possible? Let's take a look. Ukraine seized vodka made from Chernobyl apples. The scientists who made it want it back. The liquor is made from apples grown in the area close to the disaster site. In case you missed it, let's just go over this one more time. Ukraine seized vodka made from Chernobyl apples. Okay, let's go. Kyiv, Ukraine. Team of British and Ukrainian scientists are battling Ukraine's government in court for the return of 1,500 bottles of liquor made from radioactive apples grown near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The liquor, branded as Atomic, that's with a K for those of you listening but not watching, is part of a 4-year experiment by the scientists to see if they could produce a product safe to consume from crops grown in an area that was contaminated during the 1986 nuclear disaster at the plant. The team sourced the apples from a farmer inside the outer ring of the 18-mile exclusion zone. Around 10,000 people still live in that outer zone, and the scientists hoped that farming, which is still officially banned there, can now be safe to resume. The first bottle of the liquor was produced in 2019, and scientists used rye grain and water from the exclusion zone. This year, the scientists had hoped to ship their first batch to the UK with profits intended to go to the local community near Chernobyl. But in March, they hit a roadblock. Ukraine Security Service, the SBU, seized the bottles at a distillery plant in western Ukraine. The reason, according to prosecutors, wasn't radiation, but with the bottle's customs documents. Yes, the problem wasn't with the radioactive apples. That was being the radioactive product. It was because of bureaucracy and paperwork. Smith said his team won a first ruling in court to return the impounded liquor, but are now awaiting a new hearing after the prosecutors appealed. The liquor was intended mainly as a way of drawing attention to the scientists' real work in the exclusion zone, where they have spent years studying how the landscape around Chernobyl has recovered following the disaster. This is important. Is the liquor safe to drink? Because it seems somewhat intuitive that liquor made from radioactive ingredients may be radioactive. The apples used in the liquor showed slightly elevated radiation levels, but were below the limit considered safe for consumption by Ukrainian law. The radiation was then filtered out in the distillation process, Smith said. To prove the liquor's safety, Smith sent it to be analyzed by scientists at the University of Southampton in 2019. The scientists found no sign of unusual radiation. He said the only trace of radiation in the liquor, Laptop said, was carbon-14, a radioactive isotope that naturally occurs in spirits. So it seems like the the radioactive vodka, or the vodka made from radioactive ingredients, actually isn't radioactive. But if anyone in Britain is hoping to get a couple of bottles, it is still secured in Ukraine due to bureaucracy. Glenn Chesterton, if I mix it with Red Bull, will I get superpowers? You may think that you have superpowers, Glenn Chesterton. I don't think you'll get, you won't get superpowers, but you may think after a couple of, drinks, you'll have, oh, wow, Tesla Ranger, glad to see you. Nuka-Cola, I like that. Atomic, Atomik, good name for the vodka, but maybe Nuka-Cola would be better. For their own brand of cola. Wow. Well, Glenn, you're right. If there's proper nationwide police reform, then maybe his death, we're talking about George Floyd, wasn't in vain. The thing is, as we all know, getting nationwide reform to police, it's a difficult, it's a heavy lift. Here we go. Simply Secular Dave. It should be safe. Most of the radiation in Chernobyl is at ground level. New growth, like apples, would have traces of radiation from the area, but it would be super dangerous to pick the apples. Interesting. All right. So there we go, everyone. Did we cover? Wow, right on time, too. We're doing the after party after show at 10 o'clock. I'm going to show you the last video before we wrap things up here.
Cooper, you look like a truck. A Chevy Silverado.
If you didn't see it, it was a Couturado as against to a Silverado. All right. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, supporters. I was thinking about just getting rid of all, as you know, everyone, I've been wrestling with ads. I don't want to be complicit with capitalism, at least YouTube capitalism. And so I've been thinking about just getting rid of the ads since I don't really make a lot in the ads. But I don't know. Silly Andy. That's right. Grand Farmer. Glad to see that you're here. So I'm trying to come up with ways of doing this thing. Bananas, Tesla Ranger. Bananas are radioactive, but you have to eat a few hundred pounds for it to be dangerous. This vodka sounds interesting, especially since it was tested and found negative for excessive radiation. Yeah, something about the distillation process that got the radiation out of there. All right. Are we doing thank you video? Let me do the thank you video. And then we're going to do, of course, the after party after show. If you want to be in the backstage and talk, well, if you go into the backstage, we talk on stage. But, if you want to do that, the link is in the description. You know the deal, right? All right. Let's do the thank you video, everyone.